What's up, guys? Welcome to another BrokenGrandAm. Today we're doing our struts, specifically the McPherson Assemblies as they call them. So that's the spring on the strut and the mount all together as one. I'm going to show you how to replace the whole assembly as one, and then I'm going to show you pieces of one kind of broken down. I've got my brother's setup that we're going to be putting on his car, and it's still in pieces, so I'll show you it broken down, all the components. So let's jump into it. This is another easy one. Okay, so for visuals, we haven't assembled these completely yet, but here's the KYB and H&R loading springs that we're going to be throwing on my brother's car. Here I have one completely apart. So obviously here's your spring here. The bigger ones are fronts, as you can see, and your skinnier ones are backs. Here's the strut itself, with the boot already installed. So that brings us to our strut mount here. So here we're looking at a rear one, and then obviously we have your nut here. So if you're going to build, your own, for if you'd say you're doing lowering springs or whatever the case is, and you're not buying a complete setup already, make sure you have all your components. For example, like your boot, and then on the bottom of these perches here, is supposed to be an insulator. It's like a thin piece of rubber. We have to order them for these yet, but yeah, so just make sure you have everything before you throw it together. And then once you're ready and you assemble, make sure you can see the spring here has it sits down further. You'll see here on the perch where it sits in. Make sure that's in the correct orientation, and then make sure your mount is in the correct orientation to your where it mounts to the knuckle. And you're going to need spring compressors. What they're going to do is they're going to grab on each side, and they're going to press this down a little bit while it's all together. So if we look at this one, say we're putting this one together, put your spring compressors on and draw that in a little bit, and then you're going to go ahead and torque down this nut here. So it's not too hard. It gets kind of dangerous dealing with compressing coil springs. If something lets go and they go flying, and you could take out an eye. Okay, so here you go. We've got the front tire off here. What we're going to do is we're going to undo these three guys here. They're 13 millimeters. Then we're going to come down here, and you'll see there's two bolts that run through the strut into the knuckle. These two nuts are 21 millimeter. You'll take those off, and we're going to hammer those out. Remember the orientation, no matter what side you're on, because if you do try to do it the other way, you're going to run into your caliper trying to put everything back together. So remember how that goes. From there, you might have to do a little bit of prying. As you can see, there's some corrosion here. So we'll go ahead and get these guys out. So let's get these upper bolts off first. It's a 13 millimeter, and it's two nuts and a bolt. So get this last nut off here. You see we got those off, and you'll see it'll be kind of free floating, but it won't go nowhere because one, we're still attached here, and then the tension of the lower control arm will keep that up. So next, let's tackle these lower nuts. So let's go after these bottom bolts here. They're 21 millimeter, and they're going to really be on there, I can almost guarantee. So you're going to want to use yourself a breaker bar, and okay, kind of leave the nuts just on the end. Leave the nuts go a couple threads on. Let's go ahead and tap these guys through. Kind of walking it out. The top one will probably be able to wiggle out of here. Okay, so there's your top one. The bottom one might give you a little. Oh, no. Lift up on that. There's your bottom one. Now watch, because this may fall out, but mine's kind of still stuck there. If you can't get those all the way through by just pulling, take a punch or a Phillips screwdriver and kind of tap the bolts all the way through. be gentle so you don't damage the end of them or damage your threads. So at this point, it's all the way disconnected. If it doesn't come loose, you're gonna get yourself a pry bar, and you're gonna stick a pry bar right here between the knuckle and our strut. Kind of pry that guy out of there. Give a little wiggle here and there. Then what you want to do is push down on your whole arm here. Take the strut towards the back at an angle and bring her on out. Something else to note here that we'll compare on the other one is you'll see that one hole's small, the other one's kind of bigger. So like here for the front, you know, there's no play there. It's a nice circular hole. Our bottom ones though, they're slotted. So that allows for adjustment when it comes to aligning. You know, so for sure a set like this, you know, once installed, gonna need an alignment. So I showed you on those aftermarket KYBs how it had quite a bit of play for adjustment reasons. On these ones, I'm noticing it does have some play here, but it's actually up and down. So it's not a fact that it's slotted, it could just be worn out. But and up and down, it's not going to do anything, especially with this one being fixed. What you're looking for is slotting in and out. Even though these stock OEM ones don't have adjustment, it's still a good idea to go ahead and take it in and have them line it back up. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so to get this thing back in, we're just going to go reverse. Take that angle again. Go up inside of the strut mount there. Kind of get it lined up. So once we get it lined up here, see how I have it kind of in this groove? You're going to come up here and we're going to line it up. And then we're going to go ahead and get these, at least the nuts started. So kind of pick up on the bottom there with your foot. So what that'll do is that's going to help keep it kind of in one place while we have fun fighting with this guy. Get the bottom in first, and then we're going to get the top in. So it's going to be kind of hard to show you this. But basically what I'm going to do is kind of wiggle it, kind of go down with it because it's under tension. Right, a little bit of wiggling, so that'll fall right in place. Then we're going to get our top one. And basically what the top one's going to be is kind of tilting back. And same thing, just kind of wiggle as you get in there. Take your hammer. So get as flush as you can there with a hammer. Same thing with that bottom one. And go ahead and get your nuts started. Get those tightened down. And we're going to come back up here. You're going to work on getting these tightened. And don't forget this outer bolt. Find the best way, tighten the nuts down. That'll draw it up where it needs to be, and then do this outer bolt. So there you go. That's all nice and tight again. These are all tight. Put your wheel back on and get yourself down to an alignment. Okay, so here we have the back wheel off. Here's our back strut assembly. For this guy, you've got two 18mm in the lower. You've got two 13s from down here. In your trunk, pull your carpet back. Top of the strut tower. Here's the 13 from above. I'll undo those uppers, and then we'll undo the lowers, and we'll pull this guy out. I got the upper nut off now, so then we'll go ahead and go after these 18 millimeter. Swing the bottom forward, and you'll kind of angle it out. A little finesse, here's your rear strut assembly. Now we'll go ahead and reinstall it. Do that same kind of reverse. So you'll tuck it down between the brake line and the front of your suspension. And you'll bring it up as close as you can to the hole. Slide into place. And then we'll have to kind of pry. If you set it right there on one of those auto arms, you'll be able to grab the nut from up top. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, so I have the top nut on, so this won't fall back out while I'm messing with it. Okay, now I have it kind of in. We're gonna get a giant C-clamp. So our goal with the C-clamp is we're gonna draw it back into the strut. Is get that lower one in first, because in the upper you'll be able to just pivot right in place. I don't have access to a punch, but you would get a larger punch. And with the hole being close, you're gonna use that punch to draw it in close to where it needs to be. Okay. And between punches and pushing down, you may need to clean up where the knuckle goes into the strut. Get some of that corrosion off there. It'll help be a little bit more pliable. But between your C-clamp, a punch, moving it around, you just have to play with it. But definitely get that bottom one in there first. Tap it the rest of the way in. Okay, we'll go ahead and relieve that downward pressure. Okay, tap that one in. And always try to get them in as much as you can. Try to avoid using the nut to draw it in. We'll go ahead and tighten these bottom ones. So take your pry bar, pry against the body. That'll get it turned. You may need to pry and get the bolt started. So we'll go ahead and we'll tighten the nut first from the trunk. I'll tighten these guys, and that'll wrap the rear. Okay, that wraps it up for our suspension video. Hopefully all this info helps you guys. Any questions, leave them in the comments, or catch me on social media, and I'll do what I can to help. See you in the next one.